version of this video, you can do so on Patreon. This is largely due to some of the biggest and most influential drill rappers mentioning him in their songs, often rapping about this pocket-sized, savage, admired shooters. T-Roy, real name James Johnson, got his nickname from his second name, Troy, which is appropriately an apartment complex with almost 700 units, but it's also the name of an alleged gang that resides there. Troy himself had two brothers, who were known on the streets as HK and Slutty. Both of those brothers have since tragically passed away, but their mother would also raise three other of a young woman from Parkway Gardens called Keita, who seemingly died from natural causes. But clearly this woman had a huge impact on T-Roy, who even went on to name his own Facebook account after her. But this was also a time when youths like T-Roy were beginning to truly experience the violence taking place on the streets of Chicago. In 2011, O-Block would end up losing two important members to gang violence, OD and the two. The first of these, OD Perry, was the very person who the gang O-Block would take their name from, with Parkway Gardens formerly being known in the streets as Wing City. After OD's death, the gangsters there would proudly call themselves O-Block. Undoubtedly, these deaths played a major role in making the young T-Roy become increasingly active in the streets, and not long after this, T-Roy ultimately gaining a reputation as one of Chicago drill's most savage shooters, all of which without ever rapping in a single bar.
Extremely cute, the samurai is so cute. I'm going to focus on upgrading the Minotaur and the samurai. Together, they'll be an unstoppable duo. They both dive around the map, dealing high levels of damage. The samurai's ultimate, cast health regeneration for 5 seconds. Whoa, so strong! He's just so cute, look at his little outfit! Fight real players in the arena, unlimited heroes, and build a perfect team. You have to try Merge Arena. Download it free now.
It's time, not just to go back to school, but to come back and move forward. Start your comeback today at GOOOOO.edu.
On the 3rd of December 2011, at around 3:45 p.m, a young man named Dale Fisher, also known as Squirrel, was walking with a friend to the corner store near 62nd and St. Lawrence when a silver two-door car would pull up next to them. Someone leaned out the window and opened fire, hitting Dale several times. This was a brutal and senseless slaying, but even more brutal was the fact that in the aftermath, someone would take a graphic picture of Dale's body laying on the sidewalk. It's moments like this that really drive home just how dark life in the Chicago streets can really be. After the shooting, and after being pictured on the ground, Dale was taken to the Strobel Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. About half an hour later, police would report claims that Dale was shot a total of 12 times. And according to Dale's friends and family, he wasn't really a gang member and would rather spend time at a youth centre than on the streets. Dale's family had actually moved away from the Washington Park and Woodlawn area to the Chatham neighbourhood about 3 miles south. But unfortunately, Dale would still come back to his old stomping grounds to hang out with his friends, some of whom were indeed affiliated with the sets in the area that were enemies of O-Block. This included STL on St. Lawrence Avenue and EBT on Everhart on 64th and Jara City on 62nd, as well as crews within them like FYB and FBG. In the years following Dale's death, many of these people would tweet about Dale being an innocent civilian who had nothing to do with any gang rivalries in the area. However, Dale was seemingly around real gang members who had many enemies in the streets. One video of Dale, seemingly taken within a day of his murder, would even circulate online. Dale would be seen in pictures throwing up gang signs, suggesting that he himself had already been sucked into the gangbanging lifestyle. Seemingly, his connection to gangs would come from family ties, as Dale's big brother was a known St. Lawrence member who went by the name Main Man. Main Man was even seemingly mentioned in the police reports regarding the murder Dale's killer has never been caught, but there have been several factions and suspects who have been rumoured to have been behind this murder. For example, in 2012, rapper billionaire Black's brother Richie Jerk would seemingly implicate the Lamron set for killing Dale, but another popular suspect in the murder has been D. Rose, who belonged to the 600 set and were very close to O'Block themselves. However, O'Block's own T. Roy has also been suspected of being involved in Dale's murder, with the implication that this may well have been the first of as many as 10 murders that he had committed for his gang. Although some claim that T. Roy couldn't have been involved because he may well have been locked up at the time of the murder. However, recently, this case received a crucial update during the recent trial relating to the murder of FBG Duck, when one of the cooperators, allegedly FBG Butler, would tell investigators that Dale had indeed been killed by T. Roy and D. Rose. While the case was never definitively solved, the willingness of federal prosecutors to name T. Roy as a killer in paperwork speaks volumes. However, this was only the first of many rumored murders which T. Roy was thought to have played a role in. The next one will see him allegedly being assisted by his best friend, infamous killer and rapper O'Block, King Kong. About 5 months after the murder of Dale, on the 28th of April 2012, at around 9:30 p.m, a 23-year-old man called Doc, or King Doc, real name Martin Rowe, was walking near 63rd and St. Lawrence, the heart of STL's territory, when somebody opened fire as he was in front of the corner store, striking him once in the chest. Doc would then try to escape his attackers across the road through a patch of tall weeds in an empty lot in the 6300 block of St. Lawrence, where he would ultimately succumb to his injuries, passing away on the spot. However, when police would come to investigate the reports of shots fired, they could see Doc laying there in the tall weeds, and leave him there. And it wasn't until Doc's relative, a teenage boy named Modell McCamry, would go through the empty lot on his way home hours later, that he would actually stumble upon Doc's body. According to Doc's family, he had been going through a rough patch in his life and had recently been freed after doing a prison bit, which he was seemingly also celebrating on his social media. Doc had only recently begun getting his life together, getting his GED in prison, and now he wanted to get himself a painter's license to start making an honest living. In fact, the night he was killed, Doc had actually been at his aunt's property doing some maintenance, shortly before his life was cut short. However, Doc was also allegedly gang affiliated, particularly with the EBT set named after Eberhart Avenue, who were close with several other gang sets in the area, including STL, Jaro City, and MOB. People seemingly affiliated with these sets would also mourn Doc's death on their social media, some of them even seemingly alluding to knowing exactly who had killed Doc and vowing revenge. The police would also monitor on social media that members of these gangs were the most likely culprit in the murder of Doc. This is seemingly based on factors like T. Roy being known for aiming to the chest and for killing affiliates that weren't directly involved in the many beasts that O'Block had. There are also claims that EBT had been talking about catching T. Roy on Facebook immediately following the death of Doc, but ultimately this murder remained unsolved, despite many people believing this killing may well have been carried out by the shooters from O'Block, which included both King Von and T. Roy. Interestingly, King Von had started a Twitter account in the follow this murder, but he would seemingly tweet openly about his friendship with T. Roy and their activities in the streets together, saying that they shoot people like it's nothing, and tweeting openly that he will kill. With this sort of thing casually being tweeted by Von and T. Roy, it's no surprise then that within a matter of months they would both be suspected of yet another murder in the neighbourhood. In the early morning hours of August the 8th, 2012, a 28-year-old man named Terrell Joshua, known on the streets as Dirty Rel, was at the corner of 56th and Wabash. Here, he was shot several times. The police would arrive to the scene soon after, finding Rel motionless on the ground, where he was then taken to hospital and pronounced dead around 4 a.m. Like Doc, Rel was affiliated with some of the gangs in this area, such as STL and Jaro City, and members of these gangs would mourn his death on social media after his passing. But Rel was even older than Doc, and he had seemingly moved away from this area in Chicago some years ago to the city of Peoria, around 2.5 hours drive from where he was killed. It's unclear why Rel was in Chicago the night of his murder, or exactly who killed him, but once again, T. Roy's name would become attached to the case, as would King Von's, who would ominously post the previous night how there was a smell of homicide in the air, implying that Von may well have been driving around looking for ops that very night, and then posting the next night, within hours of Rel being shot, showing that Von was indeed awake at the time of the murder. Once again, also D. Rose from 600, who was known to slide with O'Block, was connected to this case as part of a theory in the legendary Chirac wiki, with it believing that D. Rose himself assisted in the murder. Now, while it's not clear exactly who shot Rel, it seems that his friends thought that this murder was indeed done by O'Block, because the very next night they would exact their revenge. That night, on the 8th of August, an O'Block member by the name of White or Whitey, real name Tony Dunn, was hanging out with King Von around O-Block, where they were celebrating Von's upcoming birthday. Von would enter a store near the apartment complex, while Whitey would wait outside. Unfortunately, it was there when Whitey was shot to death by a member of Gyro City called 50 Shot, who was then caught by the police right near the scene of the murder, even shooting it out with the cops. It would take over 10 years for justice to finally be delivered in this case, as in 2023, 50 Shot would finally be sentenced for the murder of White White and 2 attempted murders of the police officers who arrested him, with him receiving a whopping 115-year sentence. As I've discussed in length in my video, King Von, Rap's first serial killer, this was a moment that would make King Von yearn for revenge. After the death of White White, Von begun a determined sliding campaign with the goal of killing all of O-Block's ops, and Von would later rap on his song Demon that it was literally witnessing Whitey's murder that turned him into a demon, motivating him to commit numerous murders. And as Von would often discuss, his number one partner during this campaign to kill was his best friend, T-Roy, and soon they would seemingly catch another body together, this time with a dark connection to the first man that Von and the second that T-Roy had allegedly killed. About 2 months after the death of Dirty Rel and Whitey, Modell McCambry, who had found his relative Doc dead earlier that year, was walking with his friends on the street in STL's territory. A gunman would approach them on foot and begin shooting at Modell. At this point, his cousin Miles Turner would heroically attempt to shield Modell with his own body, also ending up getting shot numerous times. Miles would miraculously end up surviving the incident despite being confined to a wheelchair, as was seen in a media piece about him where he met former governor of Illinois Pat Quinn to talk about surviving gang violence. Unfortunately, despite his heroic attempts to shield his cousin, Modell would end up losing his life that night. The police would soon determine that the shooting had indeed been gang-related as part of the ongoing rivalry between O-Block, Warwick City, and STL, which Modell was allegedly affiliated with. This time, police were even able to figure out 2 specific suspects, one of these being King Von, real name Davon Bennett, who they determined to be the shooter, accompanied by T-Roy, who had allegedly been at the scene with Von. Unfortunately, due to many witnesses refusing to speak with the investigators out of fear of retaliation, both Von and T-Roy would ultimately not be charged for this murder. They would continue to torment their ops on social media, seemingly bragging openly about their victims, with Von literally tweeting the day after the murder that him and T-Roy just can't stop killing, and telling their Twitter followers to stay tuned and find out who will die next. However, after Von's death in 2020, detectives would finally get witnesses to come forward, and the case was ultimately closed, with Von determined to have been the shooter. But the next murder that Von and T-Roy were suspected of being involved in was the killing of another high-profile shooter in a rival Chicago gang, and yet another killing that's been shrouded in mystery and theories for years now. In the morning of November the 8th, 2012, not even a month after the murder of Modell, another STL member would be found in critical condition in the Wrightwood neighborhood in the far southwest side of Chicago. This time, it was a 17-year-old Rodney Stewart, better known in the streets as Boss Trell from STL, who had been shot once in the back of the head and was found laying dead in a gangway with a Glock handgun tucked underneath his body. Only a few hours before being found, Boss Trell had made a tweet stating that he was going back to sleep. So if he was going back to bed, how did he end up shot outside next to houses that he seemingly had no connection to? This shooting was actually heard by several residents in the area, but only a few had seen anything. But one of these witnesses had spotted a thin-built man with an average height wearing a white sweater running away from the scene. Another witness had seen a black van driving away from the scene, as well as another man wearing a hoodie, carrying a backpack, and running while yelling for help. While the police were trying to piece together what had happened from these tiny tidbits of information, Boss Trell had been rushed to hospital, where he would continue to fight for his life. Later that morning, Boss Trell's friend began reacting to the news of him being in hospital, and soon FBG Cash would post a picture on Twitter of himself holding Boss Trell's hand. And he would also post several tweets that sounded like threats and antagonism towards the people that he believed had shot Boss Trell, where he said that he was implying that they had something to do with his shooting, with T-Roy tweeting, "Man down," Von tweeting, "LOL, the struggle." T-Roy would even tweet, "F him, die slow," and going on to reference the infamous true crime reality show First 48, suggesting that he had just First 48'd his victim. King Von would then follow up with another heartless tweet saying that his ops aren't dying on time, a reference to Boss Trell's status in hospital, and then T-Roy himself would reference the situation mockingly, tweeting, "No Trell, stay alive." Unfortunately, later that night, Boss Trell would pass away from his injuries. But still, even the next day, King Von would continue to taunt STL, claiming that STL really stood for steady taking losses, as well as referencing Boss Trell directly, tweeting, "He ain't a boss to him." Tragically, it would later be reported that Boss Trell seemingly knew that he was in danger in Chicago, and that he'd even had plans to move to Iowa, where he had a lead on a new job. In fact, the very night he shot, he had already had a bus ticket bought to get out of town. His fears were very much warranted, because Boss Trell himself was rumored to be a known shooter, with many believing that he had killed for his gang too, particularly Sherroyd from O-Block. That same reporting would then make claims that many around Trell, including his girlfriend, as well as the detectives investigating the death, actually knew who'd done it, but without credible witnesses, including including Trell's girlfriend, who said that she didn't feel comfortable talking about people she thought were involved. They ultimately couldn't bring any charges. But given that Vaughn and T. Roy were heavily implying their involvement in the murder on social media, it would be no surprise that the internet would also begin to think they must have had something to do with the murder. Images would even circulate of a photo that T. Roy shared showing his Timberland boots covered in blood, with the implication that the blood may well have belonged to Boss Trell. These rumours were later further fueled by people close to O-Block and STL, who would seemingly admit that Vaughn and T. Roy were those responsible.
Vaughn allegedly killed Trell, him and T. Only the streets know, and only the people who did it know. So that's why I'm saying allegedly.
He got what? He caught that quick. He was listening to his raps. Like, he was really, like, telling y'all what he was doing, like, how he go, like, he'd change his shoes, he'd catch it before he even hit school. Like, he called Trell, some goofy ass on my podcast telling me, who on God moved these shows. Boss Trell is folks' work. Like, stop that. Like, that was folks' work. He did that.
People point out that Vaughn and T. Roy had seemingly been driving around Chicago the night leading up to the morning that Trell was found. However, there were also other suspects from O-Block, particularly next year in 2013, after a well-respected O-Block member called J Money, real name Jerome Wood, was ultimately killed. Immediately following that murder, friends of Boss Trell, the same of Boss Trell, insinuating that it may have been J Money who had been the trigger man, with them celebrating his passing. Then, the following year, in 2014, STL member FBG Young posted a tweet that seemingly implied that Boss Trell had died due to some kind of betrayal taking place. Then, in 2015, another good friend of Boss Trell, rapper FBG Young, was also Boss Trell's cousin, friend of his son, by homies, that it was actually a girl who had betrayed Trell and caused his death. This would seemingly match with the earlier reporting of Boss Trell's aunt blaming his girlfriend for not cooperating with the police. The rumour regarding a girl setting Boss Trell up would eventually develop into a completely new direction. To this rumour, Trell used to leave his guns at a girl's house, but that girl had a brother who ended up taking the gun. This brother was part of the gang called Quiet Money, who apparently controlled the area around where Boss Trell was found shot. The morning of his death, he had supposedly gone to get a gun back from the brother, and this would ultimately wind up with him getting killed. This story being substantiated by people who were close to the situation, such as EBT-BG.
Trell, BT, the ops didn't do that. They didn't do that. STL didn't get no get back from BT. But anyway, he got wrapped up in some trying to go get his pipe back that his brother then took from him. Like I say, everybody took guns from STL.
This rumour hasn't been proven to be true either, and the murder of Boss Trell is still an open case. It's important to mention that there's never been any definitive proof exactly who was the girl that supposedly set Boss Trell up, and what exactly was her role in this supposed setup. Many have naturally accused Boss Trell's supposed girlfriend, but there have been multiple women in his life, which was something his supposed girlfriend had also implied. So, we may never know who did it, but regardless of exactly who it was, if the tweets were anything to go by, to Vaughn and T. Roy, the murder and death of their rivals was just an everyday activity, and with that in mind, it would only be a matter of time before they indeed killed again. On the 19th of November 2012, about 10 days after Boss Trell had passed, a man in his 30s, named James Holman, was standing in front of his apartment when four men reportedly exited a nearby apartment building and approached him, at least one of them opening fire, hitting Holman in his forearm and chest, with these wounds later proving fatal when he was rushed to hospital. The shooting happened in the 6000 block of South Michigan Avenue, which is in the heart of 600's hood. This immediately raised the question, who, other than people affiliated with 600, would exit a building in that area before immediately shooting somebody? This question particularly arises when you know the fact that Holman was an alleged member of the Gangster Disciples, apparently being better known in the streets as Little James or Baby J, with him also allegedly having ties to the MOB set, who 600 and their affiliates such as O-Block were in a bitter feud with. Moreover, the deadly duo King Von and T. Roy once again begin their tradition of seemingly implicating themselves in the murder on social media, with Von clowning somebody only 20 minutes after Little James was shot, continuing later that night by tweeting that he was killing GDs often, followed by a now infamous deleted tweet where Von outright claimed that he had killed 5 GDs and shot 10. Meanwhile, T. Roy would seemingly clarify who the O-Blockians were clowning by asking if anybody had gotten shot yesterday. Von would also seemingly match the description of the shooter in the police incident report, although this likely doesn't prove much, given his rather average height and weight. However, once again, there would also be other suspects, including members of 600, such as Bite Down, with rumours circulating of 3 murders that he was suspected of committing. Another suspect that was considered was M-Thing, the brother of prominent 600 member D-Thang. But whoever may have been responsible for James's death, the fact is, King Von was arrested only a few days after for unlawful use of a weapon. Von would end up behind bars for over a year, leaving his best friend T-Roy alone in the streets of Chirac to continue waging war against his ops. And allegedly, while Von was gone, T-Roy would end up committing several more murders before he himself would ultimately end up losing his life. T-Roy's next alleged murder victim was somewhat more mysterious than the others, who were so far all from rival sets near O-Block. This man was a 27-year-old called Stunner, real name Frederick Taylor. Stunner belonged to a gang called TTB, or Train to Blow, which also went by the name Suwoo and FOA, meaning family overall. This set hailed from the so-called low end on the north side of Washington Park, near the shores of Lake Michigan, particularly from the public housing projects on Lake Park Avenue between 39th and 40th Street. As a 27-year-old, Stunner was already a Chicago OG who apparently had a long history in the streets, and he had also tried to make it as a rapper, with songs circulating in early 2011 and possibly even earlier in his growing street gang, which included other rappers from TTB and FOA. From his music and social media, it's clear that Stunner had friends and enemies all over Chicago, as he would affiliate with other sets such as Brick City, all the way in the west suburbs, also dissed their ops, such as those with many of O-Block's enemies, including 051 Young Money and Jaro City. So they were therefore beefing with O-Block and its affiliates like 600 by association, as seen in tweets by prominent member TTB Nez. And then, around the 9th of June 2013, by around 1 AM, Stunner was in traffic with friends on the busy Dan Ryan Expressway. They were driving southbound on a slip route between 71st and 75th Streets, when somebody would pull up, shooting up their car. Stunner and a woman, both missing a third person, could later be seen speaking with the police on the side of the road. Stunner and the woman would be taken to a hospital, where he was unfortunately pronounced dead. The following day, the news of Stunner's passing would reach his friends and family. However, that's not all they would post, because already that same day, one of the most well-known members of his set, TTB Nez, would tweet an ominous message implying that O-Block, aka Wick City, had been behind the hit and promising revenge. Meanwhile, T-Roy was seemingly gone from Twitter for several days following the shooting, until he would return on the 13th. Moreover, FEG Dutchie from STL would tweet to T-Roy that day, telling him to bail out next time, implying that T-Roy had been in jail, which might have been related to the shooting of Stunner. Then, in the coming months, other TTB members would repeat a similar message as Nez, this time directly saying that it was O-Block that had killed Stunner, as well as dissing O-Block's affiliates, such as Lamron, 300, and 600. They would also diss and threaten specific O-Block members, such as senior member Boss Tom, by quoting the classic Billionaire Black in the FBG Duck O-Block diss song, Expose, where Billionaire Black raps, look at Boss Tom coming out of O-Block. And of course, he would diss T-Roy with tweets referencing his height, saying that his casket will be little, and when they catch him, they're going to burn his face. Therefore, it's not surprising that many people online have been convinced that it was O-Block who killed Stunner. Particularly, two members have been thought to have been behind the hit, T-Roy and Boss Money, who supposedly had a personal beef with Stunner before his death. However, it was one particular video that got many convinced that it must have been T-Roy, a video that's actually T-Roy's last video ever, where he seemed totally done, saying that Boss could have done him right a little mark and Stunner.
They would not Stunner me. No, I think that 33. But did they the 33?
Whoever the killer from O-Block may have been, TTB would allegedly respond with strong force. As in 2015, one of the members would tweet saying that after Stunner died, TTB had been up for an entire week trying to avenge his death. Ultimately, even if T-Roy was the killer of Stunner, he would evade his ops for several years, continuing to cause carnage for his enemies, and apparently even innocent civilians.
What do you do with 72 hours, 18 holes, 4 friends, 1 wedding? The absolute most. For however you live, bonobos.
A few months after the death of Stunner, T-Roy would allegedly get active again, this time with particularly tragic consequences. On the morning of September the 17th, 2013, a local elderly man named Billy Sargent was sitting at a bus shelter near 61st and King Drive, a location known for being a hotspot for violence, as it borders the two neighborhoods, Washington Park, in this case known as the territory of O-Block affiliated sets 600 and Front Street, as well as West Woodlawn, where rival sets like Jaro City and Type 1 World would stay. While sitting at the bus stop, like he used to do every morning, someone would approach and start shooting, kick Billy several times. 67-year-old Billy Sargent would be taken to a hospital, where he would unfortunately be pronounced dead, and his friend would later give a video interview to the Chicago Tribune, remembering his dear old friend.
He was the last person on earth that should ever get shot. He was sitting on the corner. All the old gangster boys, they knew him. This was somebody that was just... That's shame, man. I'm horrible, man. Listen, do you know right now, I have seen young kids in this neighborhood with my kids going to the park at least 15 to 20 times this summer.
points to answer. I came out of that store 3 weeks ago. They stopped the bus right here and all the police. Somebody shot at the moving bus right here, shot somebody in the head. This was 3 weeks ago. It's in the police records. Because we stood over there and asked the police, like, you know, what happened? And I told my retired parole agent, so they said, man, somebody shot the bus. So that's what it's like now, you know.
Police would tell the media that the shooter may have actually been shooting at a rival gang member. And after the shooting, witnesses would report the shooter running away near the scene, apparently his description matching that of a 14 to 15-year-old boy, who was apparently eventually captured and interviewed, but ultimately released without charges as he had an alibi. Interestingly, the police would also arrest T. Roy the very next day, accusing him of criminal trespassing, along with E-Dog and BJ from O-Block. Although the charge is seemingly completely unrelated to the shooting of the sergeant, the timing is peculiar and has likely contributed to many of the rumours that T. Roy may have well been the shooter, given particularly that the shooter apparently appeared smaller than the average adult. But another factor pointing towards O-Block being responsible is the fact that this shooting took place only a few weeks after the murder of J Money, who was one of their most beloved members, and the fact that one of the people who was allegedly present when J Money was killed was the infamous female assassin KI from STL, who would even tweet afterwards about how someone had just tried to kill her but missed, with it being plausible that this indeed could have been T. Roy shooting at KI, ultimately killing an innocent bystander in the process. Moreover, it seems that O-Block may well have been hunting KI again a few months later, because on the 1st of November, 32-year-old woman was shot in the leg. She walked in the 6300 block of South Vernon Avenue, territory of STL, around 12:23 p.m. Shortly before 2 p.m, FBG Dutchie would tweet how O-Block had come for a shooting again, but had shot an innocent junkie. And the next day, KI would tweet saying that O-Block had tried to shoot her, but missed, being someone else. And a few weeks later, Dutchie would specify that that shooting had indeed happened in Vernon. Then, some months later, KI would even tweet threatening T. Roy, saying that if he came to Vernon, he would end up dead. Ultimately, KI would end up being killed herself, with the prime suspect being King Von. However, before that would happen, there would be one more murder which T. Roy and Von were rumored to have been involved in, or at least present for. 2014 would start bad for T. Roy, because on the 9th of January he was arrested on a warrant, likely due to being out on bond after the previous legal problems that he had already racked up. However, about a month later, T. Roy would be released, and not just him, but also his right-hand man, King Von, with Boss Top, welcoming both home in mid-February. But at the same time, sending a warning to all of their ops that O-Block's top shooters were back in the South Side streets. And the ops had reasons to be fearful, because only a little over a week after the murder of the innocent man Billy Sargent in September 2013, the O-Block and 600 Alliance had lost one of their biggest rappers, L.A. Capone, who was murdered on the 26th of September by members of 051 Young Money. The death of L.A. Capone, who is still considered to be one of the most charismatic artists to have ever come out of the Chicago drill scene, hit 600 and O-Block equally hard. Together with the murder of J Money earlier that month, the O-Block 600 Alliance was thirsty for revenge, and that's exactly what they would get in 2014, because in March, 051 Young Money's biggest rapper, Lil Mark, real name Mark Campbell, put out a scathing diss track aimed at O-Block, 600, Lamron, and all of the other Black Disciple sets who formed an alliance in the Chicago streets. This diss song was called No Competition, and it was named after Lil Durk and Lil Reese's diss song against the Ops called Competition. In the song, Lil Mark would diss numerous O-Block 600 and other members from the alliance, and the music video would even include a clip of Lil Mark being on FaceTime with Lil Reese, making it clear there was a deep animosity between these two. But
stay out here, boy.
The song itself made Lil Mark the prime target for the O-Block 600 Alliance to get revenge, and on the 28th of March, only a few days after the No Competition music video was posted to YouTube, Lil Mark was standing at a bus stop on the 300 stop of East 51st Street, which despite the street number, was about a mile away from 051's hood, on the opposite side of Washington Park. While at the bus stop, a silver van would pull up, and somebody would pop out, opening fire, hitting Lil Mark in the head, and killing him on the spot. Graphic images of Lil Mark laying on the ground at the bus stop circulated on social media in the following days. One witness would describe to the police how the shooter had an extended clip, but they were unable to see their face. Several hours later, the police would find the van used for the shooting about 2 kilometers away in the London area, but the van, which had Florida plates, was engulfed in flames. Once again, immediately after Lil Mark's death, all 051 members were paying homage to him, such as their most feared shooter 051 Melly, who would seemingly jump in the streets looking for revenge as soon as he heard about Mark's passing. Meanwhile, Von, T. Roy, and other O-Block 600 members would begin dissing him relentlessly and insinuating their involvement. 051 were a violent set with a lot of enemies, and the people from O-Block, 600, and THF all celebrating the tragic news. However, even beyond the celebrations, a video would circulate seemingly showing King Von, T. Roy, and D. Rose. Lil Mark would become one of the most dissed ops among amongst the O-Block alliance for years to come.
Travis with a triple, so he's calm real more.
I'm right here keeping a little more. Damn. Meanwhile, members of 051 insinuate that O-Block may well have been behind Lil Mark's murder, like the rapper Driller, who tweeted that he would kill the whole of O-Block just to rip Mark back. Unsurprisingly, people like Von, T-Roy, THF Twiller, and D-Rose were the main suspects among Chicago drill fans. But officially, the investigation has seemingly moved nowhere, and it still remains an open case to this day. What makes the death of Lil Mark particularly sad and mind-boggling is the fact that he has seemingly been almost forgotten by the very same people days before his death, with people like Von and Twiller seemingly tweeting about having nearly caught Lil Mark just days before the murder. Ultimately, however, as the years went on, T-Roy, King Von would have less opportunities to kill, and having already caused so much pain in the streets, it was only a matter of time before T-Roy himself would ultimately be lacking, in the end suffering the very same fate that he has subjected his rivals to so many times before.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Way better vibe at our place, Western.
Mine thing, darling? Shut gardening. Some of us go for the dramatic.
How did I know we ever had vanities in tile?
This? Give me ottomans, don't like. Sean, you'll flip for the food cart. In the neighborhood, there's a place for all of us. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Later in 2014, the deathly trio, Von, T-Roy, and D-Rose, will get locked up again on different occasions. But while T-Roy would eventually be back on the streets for a period of time in 2014, this wouldn't be the case for Von, who would get charged for the murder of Malcolm Stuckey in July, only months after allegedly killing female shooter K.I., with Von remaining in jail and fighting the Malcolm Stuckey murder case for several years until the end of 2017. Von would end up beating those charges, but D-Rose wouldn't be so lucky, as he would not only be charged for the murder of Venzel Richardson in April, but eventually he would be found guilty for that murder, being sentenced to a monster bid of 40 years in jail. Perhaps it was the fate of these two that would make T-Roy calm down a little bit, because after the murder of Lil Mark, there wouldn't be any more bodies that have commonly been pinned on him in online rumours. Unfortunately, the next murder associated with his name would be the murder of T-Roy himself. In 2015, T-Roy would be arrested and charged with unlawful use of a weapon, among other charges, and he would reportedly spend over a year in jail. And at the end of 2016, O-Block would suffer another major loss when one of their most respected members, Big A, was shot and killed in a restaurant near Oakland. Perhaps it was the murder of Big A, who was a close friend of T-Roy, that would make T-Roy get active in the streets again. Or perhaps, more likely, we simply will never know all of the dirt that T-Roy was doing in the streets by himself, rolling solo, while his right-hand man, King Von, was fighting the murder case. But whatever the case, only a few months after the death of Big A, on 14th of February 2017, T-Roy would be lurking again, this time in the South Shore neighbourhood of the East Side, more specifically East 71st Street. The rumour being that T-Roy was looking for an op called TB, or Terry Barry, who belonged to the rival set Taekwon World from the West Woodlawn neighbourhood. TB was known to hang out at that location and even had pictures of himself in front of the stores there. There are even rumours that T-Roy had actually upped his gun or even shot at TB and his friends earlier that very day, particularly after a member of Taekwon World called 2 times would put out a remix of King Von's song Crazy Story, with many arguing that he's actually describing the events of that day. Whatever the case, from the now available security camera footage, we can see that around 11:50 a.m, T-Roy would enter a grocery store on 71st Street, together with another person who he had apparently met just moments earlier. Interestingly, this person would later tell the police that T-Roy had told him about an encounter that he had on that street earlier on, with someone apparently asking T-Roy, "What are you about?" Only a few minutes later, 2 men would approach the store from the same direction, with one of them stopping to tie his shoelaces, as if knowing that he would soon have to go on the run. Meanwhile, in the store, T-Roy is walking around and talking with his friend in a cold storage aisle, unaware that these 2 men are lurking outside the store. Finally, those 2 men would enter the store, walking directly to T-Roy and his friend, with the first man seemingly acting as a diversion, preventing T-Roy from noticing that the second man was approaching with a gun. That second man would then pull the gun out, shooting T-Roy once in the chest, before both men run out of the store and escape the way they came from. Meanwhile, T-Roy crawls behind the closed counter while throwing his own gun under one of the shelves, whilst his friend seemingly runs out of the store. The friend would then return and attempt to help T-Roy together with the store clerk, but for several minutes, T-Roy can be seen laying on the floor alone without anyone doing any of the basic first aid measures, such as applying pressure to the wound or attempting to keep him awake. might have saved him. Finally, police and emergency services arrive to the scene and begin helping T-Roy, while the store clerk begins to explain to the police what had happened. Eventually, T-Roy is carried out of the store and taken to a hospital, where he would unfortunately pass away. Soon, the news of T-Roy's passing reached the other members of the Overlock Alliance, and members would be devastated, especially King Von, who would be crushed by the news while still in jail fighting his case. And Von would later explain breaking down on that day when he first heard the news of T-Roy's demise.
Yo, I'm gonna figure this shit out. It'd be cool out there. I call folks. It's like, it's on like Valentine's Day, you see what I'm saying? I call folks, I'm calling, I call. Now, I call my mom. My mama call. Now we try to call T-Roy, she ain't answer. They try to call T-Roy, he ain't answer. Alright, when? Nah. What I wrote. I gotta call somebody. I probably call a hoe or something. I call a Zaria, so I call a hoe. Then, I call my mama back. And she crying and shit. Mama, what you crying for? You good? You know what I'm saying? They shot T-Roy. T-Roy got, what? Who? What? Look at the phone. You know how that shit, you in jail, you can tell it on. And we calling around. What's going on? He got hit once, some jail. Damn. What the fuck going on out there? T-Roy got shot. Look, this the thing. Y'all don't know T-Roy. Y'all gotta leave our history of T-Roy. Y'all don't know. T-Roy got to go further. That's T-Roy. That's T-Roy. Oh, you know what I'm saying?
1 in 8 people have worked at a McDonald's.
Hi, welcome to McDonald's.
That's a lot of people who know things like teamwork, people skills, and surprising moments. Our experiences you'll always have.
Yeah, I don't know T-Roy like I know T-Roy. You know what I'm saying? So when I hear he gets shot on, you don't want to talk me like don't be lacking, don't be, you know? He was telling me he used to be on each other, you know what I'm saying? Because me and him, we back to back. My boy, you know what I'm saying? Both got shot. I said, hold on. I said, the streets, hold on. Who got shot? Who? Now my ear gangster. He got shot before. He a gangster. Folks ain't make it, I'm pulling them out. I play it out, you know me, you gotta play it out. You in jail, so all type of goof asses around, you know these third people. All of your business, okay, they like walk it off. Now my homie the Mountain West, really did number junior, phone number. Now they see me, I'm just walking around in circles on the back, you know. And they put their arm around one of my days, bro, you good, bro, what's going on? Yeah, I'm good, what's wrong, you got wrong, man, I'm good, you know. They were asking me, they just killed T-Roy, he what? They killed T-Roy, they just killed T-Roy. I gotta break it down, I couldn't help it, they hold this hug, man, it's real, you know what I'm saying, we grow this thing. But we're out with the hug, get the bag, you gonna be alright, shorty, you gonna be alright, though.
T-Roy's old friend Chief Keef would also tweet about him paying homage on Twitter following his passing. Although he had been estranged from many of his old Overlock friends due to events that had taken place years earlier while Keef was still living in Chicago, where Overlock veteran Ross Todd was accused of robbing Keef's house. The fact that Keef still paid homage to T-Roy in spite of everything that had gone on with Overlock just showed how much of an impact T-Roy had had on Keef, the true pioneer of Chicago drill music. Meanwhile, following the murder, T-Roy's enemies would be reacting with glee, including FPG Duck, who would react to T-Roy's death live on Instagram, what many have considered to have been a fake reaction, with the rumour being that Duck's brother, FPG Brick, who can actually be heard speaking in the background of this video, had in fact been the person who gave T-Roy's location to his killers.
Damn, they on here talking about what you think about T-Roy getting popped. T-Roy got popped? When did that happen? When did T-Roy get popped?
Hey, Dex. Good to see you again. I'll show you the way to the track. Follow me.
Is he dead? Did he die? Damn, who took that pop T-Roy?
Well, that's coming up. No Lucas this time, huh? Figures. Oh, all right. Grew up on these roads. Me and Lucas are the same age. Though, obviously, the years have been harder on his stupid ass.
Investigations unit identification of both men. They recognize the shooter,
This track where we're going, that's where we learned to race back in the day. They get some kind of water treatment plant. This used to stink like a swamp, and that's what made it perfect. The air was nasty, but the roads were clear. One time, Lucas nearly drifted into an open tank of sewage. But don't worry, they put a roof on that since. Now I run these practice sessions for out-of-towners, so y'all don't embarrass yourselves at the showdown. You impressed? Maybe I'll give you a little something to get your car up to showdown standards.
I like the sound of that.
Also dig up an old tweet TV in 2015 with the secretly T-Roy's death for his own word, as well as creepy posts from T-Roy's Twitter account and TV retweeted "Probably killing him." The murder of T-Roy might have embarrassed me, but it was nothing compared to what will transpire over the rest of the year.
Swing right. Here we are. Let's see what you got.
Ultimately, T-Roy was one of O-Block's most fierce shooters and savages who was ready to kill at a moment's notice. He was feared in the streets and loved the gang. Ultimately, despite his reputation, his days were truly numbered. Only a matter of time before his enemies caught up with him the same way that he had caught up with them. With the death of T-Roy, many members of O-Block knew who would get back at him. Waged an individual revenge campaign in T-Roy's name.
Follow my lead.
Their primary goal
Or
was to
come
get
and
back
take it.
for T-Roy, murdering his killers without anyone something to do with his death. Following T-Roy's murder, numerous people from the other side lose their lives in quick succession, making 2017 one of the deadliest years in O-Block history. Many high-profile homicides were occurred, starting on May 15th, 2017, when Delta, aka Little Hope from New York City, was gunned down. Little Hope was just 1 time when the earth hit an uncalled for 600 degrees on the afternoon of the 15th of May, 7 rounds of fire, 61 on the South Everlock.
You don't lose me that
Was
easy.
lying on the pavement, victim to several deadly gunshot wounds. Little Hope was shot multiple times in his head, which was not anyone's dead at the scene. This murder would be the first victim of the Get Back gang killings, with O-Block being responsible, and the 600 members were also present too. Despite the possible family connection between Little Hope and 600's most well-known members, 600 Breezy, Little Hope was known to be a moneymaker in the area. Due to his age, it is unlikely that he was involved in this war at all, but simply being from Taro City that made him a target of Get Back. These months ago, many showed new information. The incident that had been uncovered through the Freedom of Information Act was a new document revealing that there were factual shooters present at the scene, with one of them standing over Little Hope and running. It was clear that Get Back gang was aiming to kill
I hope you know where you're going.
Commenters on Reddit later shared how at this time, this murder was seen as a warning that a storm was coming. Redditors have since mentioned that dark reality behind this murder, specifically Little Hope was close to about 600, as even after Little Hope's murder, 600 Breezy had been pictured with McAdoo, one of the alleged shooters who had killed his uncle.
I'm right here.
Some people even commenting how crazy it would be if your day from homie was your company. Gang on you, man. But Get Back gang was only just getting started. 7 days later, they would strike again, this time against their GD rivals, MOB.
I love a
8
good
p.m.
fight.
22nd of May, 27-year-old MOB affiliate Jamo, real name Jamie Jones, was driving near 59th Street in LaSalle in the Washington Park neighborhood when a car pulled up alongside him and shot Jamo in the chest. Southbound on Yale Avenue, fleeing the scene. Jamo was taken to a hospital, but he was later pronounced
Gotta
dead
warn
at
you,
11:55
I
p.m.
don't like
Another
losing.
recently released police report showed that Jamo exited the car and getting shot, possibly to get help. Ultimately, he collapsed in the street. Once his car remained in motion, eventually crashing. Guski from MOB, PA John was allegedly the brother of two Front Street members, a set which has also been very close with both O Block and 600, with this being yet another reminder that in Chicago, your own family members may be killed by your friends if they get on the wrong side of the gang war. There's many theories speculating about exactly who was involved in this murder, with the majority seeming to believe that it was McAdoo from 600 involved in this hit, essentially pinning two murders on him within just a week, with another main suspect being Catfuck12 from 600 and T-Roy's brother Heck, aka HK from O Block. Get Back Gang had now allegedly killed 2 ops in 7 days, all in retaliation to T-Roy's murder. However, the gang that was most likely directly responsible for T-Roy's murder, Taekwon World, had not yet faced any direct consequences. But O Block clearly had no plans on stopping the Getbacks, with members like E-Dog tweeting that more Getbacks would be coming that very summer. And indeed, the next month, Get Back Gang would allegedly strike again in yet another brutal murder, with T-Roy's brother Heck allegedly beginning his own spree of vengeance, earning himself a fearsome reputation in the Chicago streets, just like his late brother, as well as a new nickname that would warn anyone who crossed him just how deadly he was on the streets.
Don't just take classes, take charge. Start your comeback today at PurdueGlobal.edu.
Poppy was the right-hand man of TB, Terry Barry, the man who had seemingly shot and killed T. Roy, and the two were even seen together in multiple photos, even collaborating on music, earning them their most popular song, Taekwon Way, a tribute to their gang set Taekwon World. Poppy was just 18 years old, and much like many other teens at his age, he worked a normal day job at a local business to make ends meet. On the 16th of June, Poppy was working his shift as normal at the L&P Candy Warehouse, which was located on the 7047 block of South State Street in the Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood, just a few miles away from the main war zone around the Woodlawn and Washington Park neighborhoods. At around 3 p.m., Poppy had been helping an elderly female customer take her shopping back to her car. Whilst he was literally at work helping a customer, a maroon-colored vehicle would pull into the parking lot, and a masked man would exit the vehicle and begin firing an AK-47-style automatic rifle towards Poppy, striking him 3 times in the head, once in the lower body, once in his back, and once in his right upper arm.
Getting multiple tickets hitting the board for a person shot. 7-5 in state, 7-1 in state, 7-0 in state. First tickets coming in at 7-5 in state. Says male shot inside the candy warehouse. White car did a U-turn to go westbound on 7-1, possibly back on the expressway. Unknown if that car is involved. One caller saw 2 male legs on the ground shooting near a white sedan parked at the candy store. Male black 6-foot with dreads and a white t-shirt and jeans. Per 7383 Adam, offenders jumped out of a maroon car and fired the shots, got back in the car and went northbound.
We got multiple shell cases out here.
Another ticket says that a male black wearing a white hat took off in a car. Didn't remember the color. Last thing getting on the expressway. Maroon vehicle. Last thing northbound on state with the male black shooter.
We're gonna take them to county hospital. Ambulance 65 is taking another one. I guess a female.
Okay, that's color 4-door vehicle. The passenger jumped out of the vehicle and shot the victim.
The victim worked at this candy store.
Is that the male or the female?
The female is not shot. She just fell. She's not shot.
We know we have a male with a gunshot wound to the head, unknown condition, ambulance 14 disclosure, and unknown name.
Victim's last name Ryan, date of birth 04 June 99, male black, critical condition for now.
It's believed that this despicable act of violence is when Heck, short for his real name Hakeem Murray, got his new nickname, HK, which allegedly stood for Headshot King. Poppy was ultimately taken to the Stroger Hospital where he was unfortunately pronounced dead around 6 hours later. But to make matters even worse, the horrific aftermath of the shooting was recorded and is actually still circulating online. It's far too graphic to show you here. In the clip, Poppy's almost lifeless body could be seen clinging on in his final moments, whilst distraught members of the public can be seen around him, frantically attempting to give first aid and help him pull through. Meanwhile, the woman who Poppy had been helping put things in her car before the shooting could be seen laying on the floor, screaming in shock. And according to reports, she would remain laid out on the floor until the police arrived. This goes to show you just how brutal and senseless the violence can get in these gang wars, with members having zero sympathy or consideration to the life-changing trauma that they're putting dozens of innocent people in, on top of the actual murders themselves. Unfortunately, this murder was very personal, and the killers from O Block didn't seem to care who got in their way. Poppy was indeed affiliated with the gang, and the person who had murdered T-Roy and he had been rumoured to have killed at least one person to himself. Now, it's unknown exactly who was inside the maroon vehicle, as no arrests have been made for this murder, and it would turn out that that store was located right next to a freeway, essentially giving the shooter a perfect chance to escape the area instantly after the hit. However, in a true Chirac fashion, the alleged perpetrators, including HK, who was the alleged shooter, would begin hinting at their involvement almost immediately. Heck would begin to be referred to as HK or Headshot King, an apparent badge of honour based on his accuracy with the gun that day. Furthermore, the day after Poppy's murder, HK was seen flaunting a chain of his big brother T-Roy, something that members are known to do when they have avenged the said person on their chain. Further insults and taunting from O-Block members would implicate HK as the shooter, such as Melly from O-Block visiting the candy store and shouting out HK, together with a post that reads, "If you know." However, on the other side of the war, after news spread about Poppy's death, TB would share on Twitter that he was devastated. The two had been extremely close, and it would later circulate that following Poppy's murder, TB would suffer mentally, allegedly checking into a mental health facility twice during this period, with this seemingly confirmed by a later article by one of his teachers. Killing such a close friend to TB and a beloved member of Taekwon World, Get Back Gang were getting closer and closer to the person responsible for T-Roy's death. But they were not done killing, and it still seemed like anybody could get it. Then, just 12 days later, Get Back Gang would continue their murder spree, this time killing a female affiliate to MOB and an innocent woman.
High-quality ingredients, no harmful pesticides. Stonyfield Organic, good on purpose.
White girl, real name Janine Dowell, who also went by Janine Charrell, was a 32-year-old woman living in the MOB neighbourhood. Many internet theories have pinned her as a set-up chick, however there's no evidence that I found to support this. In reality, she was a mother of 3 and nicknamed Miss Make It Happen due to her dedication to grant her family their wishes. Unfortunately, it would seem her proximity to O-Block's enemies would make her a target for Get Back Gang too. On the 28th of June, Janine was driving in an SUV with another woman named Juliet Washington in the Washington Park neighborhood. As they approached a red traffic light and stopped, 2 shooters would approach the vehicle, pulling up beside them and shooting into the car, hitting both victims multiple times. As the SUV rolled into the sidewalk, both shooters ran back to their car and fled. The news would report the 2 women in the car as deceased, and heartbreaking pictures would be taken at the crime scene as people learned the tragic news and had to be held back by police. After the murder, Washington's auntie was interviewed at the scene, with her appearing completely shocked as to why someone would kill her niece, who was not affiliated with anything gang-related and rarely even visited the city. Sadly, it appeared that Juliet was simply collateral damage, with the real target likely being White Girl due to her affiliations with people from her neighborhood. Eventually, McAdoo from 600 and Lil Scud from O-Block would be arrested and charged for this double murder. Prosecutors alleged that it was around 10:30 p.m. when McAdoo and Lil Scud pulled up in a stolen grey sedan behind Washington's stopped SUV at Warbush Avenue and Garfield Boulevard, with this being in the heart of MOB's hood. They then got out the car, approached the SUV on foot with handguns, and carried out the extremely brutal double murder, firing almost 24 rounds in approximately 15 seconds. Clearly, they wanted to make sure that White Girl didn't survive. One of the alleged motives for this gruesome murder is that White Girl was looking to cooperate in a battery case against somebody allied to 600, and thus it's believed that McAdoo and Lil Scud were supposedly paid to do this hit. This is supported by the fact that McAdoo reportedly made 15 calls to the person from the case in the hours before and after the murder. In just 2 months, McAdoo had been implicated in 3 murders, and now his life as a free man had finally come to an end. Meanwhile, MOB were left mortified by this situation. Jamo and White Girl had been killed by Get Back Gang in retaliation for a murder they didn't even commit. White Girl's murder was referenced on the track Street to Me by Lil Mo, 6 Blocker and Ruger, where they rap, "Can't believe they killed Janine, that was a whole girl." Whether White Girl's murder is seen as part of the Get Back for T-Roy or just a paid hit is irrelevant. She was the 4th murder within 2 months, carried out by the same group, with McAdoo being involved in the first 2. This is clearly a continuation of the gang's relentless murder spree, which had now seemingly broadened to contract killings. Sadly, they would not stop there. The next month, Get Back Gang, or so-called OB600, named after the 2 sets O-Block and 600, who had become increasingly tight during their recent violent escapades, would commit another double murder, catching 2 family members of FBG Duck on the very same night. Kobe Mack, who was from Taekwon World, is the cousin of infamous rapper from 63rd and St. Lawrence, FBG Duck, while FBG Brick is Duck's big brother.
I don't understand, like, everybody think Duck, like, y'all want know Duck, but anybody that really know Duck, know me, you know what I'm saying? Okay. And I ain't get my name off rapping, you know what I'm saying? Just something I always had a passion for, you know what I'm saying? I started doing it, but that ain't where I got my name from. Okay, I'm saying, I guess by Duck get his name for rapping, being over famous and shit. See me and like, oh, that's Duck brother, but they really know, you know what I'm saying, know what I be on and shit. And that's my little brother, you know what I'm saying? Little brother, you know, my big little brother. That's what's up there.
Brick 2 was very close with Taekwon World and was often seen with Terry Barry and other members in his music videos. It's even theorized that Brick may have been the very person who actually gave TB T-Roy's location before he was killed. And fans believe this is actually why Brick was seen pictured with TB and Get Right around that time when those two were wearing the same clothes that they wore in the surveillance footage on the hit. The day after T-Roy was killed, Brick was heard in the back of FBG Duck's live stating how proud he was of Taekwon World that they had killed T-Roy. Duck would swiftly tell him to be quiet as he's on live before going on to pretend that he was just finding out that T-Roy is dead that moment from his chat.
Look on my head going, good, they so happy, you got funny as hell, because I know folks know proud, they got him out there. I know them. I'm on live, G. Shut the f*** up. It's funny. Before you even get it, it just came on. But still, it's Instagram. It just came on.
In the midst of Get Back Gang's murders, Kobe and Brick chose not to stay low-key. On July the 17th, a block party was thrown in STL EBT territory on the 6300 block of St. Lawrence, where the duo was in attendance. Whilst Brick and Kobe were in the porch area of the house, a white SUV pulled up and a person hopped out, approaching Kobe before shooting him multiple times. Brick was then chased in the alleyway next to the house, where he too was also shot several times, and both would end up losing their lives at the scene, with Brick supposedly being left on top of a fence that he had tried to jump over in an attempt to escape. Furthermore, images of Kobe's corpse lying on the grass were also revealed to the public, news articles which covered the murder. On top of that, a viral photo also circulated which depicted FBG Duck and his mother, Mama Duck, mourning the loss at the scene. And recordings of the aftermath were also released, where Mama Duck can be heard screaming and crying, with her chilling outpouring of grief echoing all throughout the neighborhood. Mama Duck has since given more insight into how the double murder played out in numerous interviews. According to her, one car was waiting in front of the house where Kobe was, whilst another car came behind the house, the direction where Brick was attempting to escape through the gangway. This all appeared to be a planned ambush, almost as if they knew that Brick would run that way.
From witnesses and people who have told me that supposed to have been a car waiting in the back behind where they were standing, and then a car came up the one way, and they instantly shot Kobe, and Brick tried to run and jump a gate, and was shot in the back. And he was also, I'm assuming the way his autopsy report was, that as he was running towards the back, somebody was back there waiting on him. So I wasn't aware that he was shot in his face until I went to identify him.
The autopsy report would show just how gruesome and violent these murders were, with Brick shot 6 times and Kobe 9 times. Now, many suspect that HK, Cap, McAdoo, Trey 5 and C Murder were the ones responsible for planning this hit, with Redditors saying that this was almost confirmed. Some years later, C Murder would apparently be identified as the shooter of Brick in articles that detailed legal paperwork that had circulated after he was charged with the murder of FBG Duck. Brick's mother also believed that Cap was involved and even commented on a post claiming that he was implicated in killing Brick. Cap and Brick actually had a history of back and forths on Twitter just a month before this, where Brick can be seen insulting Cap and claiming that C-Day has no respect for Cap. Brick may have actually been telling the truth, as C-Day famously said that the Ops should have killed Cap instead of Trix, which according to some rumours was due to a love triangle. Although the tweet could have likely just been C-Day's way of hinting that Cap was the one who had been hurting the Ops the most, but in 2019, Cap would tweet again, disrespecting Duck and Brick. But Brick was not innocent in this war, and Mama Duck would later say in a live stream how people didn't even know the half of what he had actually done in the streets.
I ain't finna sit here and act like, can tell me something, you act like Duck was innocent. He the was compared to Brick. Y'all don't even know the motherfucking half, okay?
Just days before his murder, Brick was also antagonizing his Ops on Twitter, even calling them out for not engaging in shootouts and claiming that he was ready to walk through O-Block. However, like so often in gang life, they weren't always enemies, and one chilling photo from many years ago would actually show FBG Brick at a youth centre alongside none other than McAdoo, one of the main killers in this spree of murders, who is also rumoured to have possibly been the person who killed Brick. And just like with Cap, Brick had also had a history of escalating tension with McAdoo, claiming that after he had gotten shot in a previous incident, he choked McAdoo after Inky D and C-Day ran from him. Clearly this was personal, but it was also another revenge murder in the name of T-Roy. And by this point, Get Back Gang had murdered 7 people from May to July 2017, only months after T-Roy's murder. However, one man was still at the top of their hit list, the man responsible for pulling the trigger and killing T-Roy. And just 2 months later, Get Back Gang would ultimately find exactly who they were looking for.
Smooth running business, that's the goal. It's a bumpy road, but when we're all tuned in together for that common purpose, and we're all going the right way, then the bumps kind of smooth out, and that's really all you can ask for.
Finance leaders like Stephanie rely on Sage tools and insights to smooth out the bumps in their business. Sage, helping business flow.
With his right-hand man Poppy and FBG Brick being murdered just months earlier, TB should have seen the warning signs that he was not safe in Chicago. Likely he did, but he simply couldn't leave the streets alone after having lost so many of his best friends. TB had in fact made himself a target by bragging about his crimes on the internet and even choosing to taunt O-Block and Get Back Gang by claiming they will never get back. A brave post considering they had already killed 2 people at this point. As TB chose not to relocate in this war, sadly, eventually, it would end up catching up with him. At this point, Get Back Gang was truly looking for TB, and HK was even seen on Gyro City Skinny's Instagram Live, asking for his location. HK could also be seen on social media, sliding and looking for TB with the other members. Then, on the 23rd of September, E-Dog would ominously post to Twitter, saying that Get Back Gang was on the way, telling his fans, just watch what was about to happen. And on the morning of the 26th, TB shared to Facebook that he was feeling blessed. Truly chilling post, considering what would come next. Allegedly, Get Back Gang members had spent days trying to get TB's location, and much later, Lil D would even share the messages from the moment when HK seemingly found TB's location. A very incriminating post that apparently preceded the murder. At 12:45 p.m, TB was with a man called Side from Gyro City on the 7000 block of South Chapel Avenue, close to the incident. We'll probably never know exactly what was going through TB's head at that exact moment, but what we do know for certain is that TB, real name Terry Barry, was also shot in the head and later pronounced dead at Northwestern Hospital, just aged 21. But a crazy coincidence is just how similar the headlines were about the murders of T-Roy and TB. Maybe the person writing these articles had a sense of irony, or perhaps more likely, it simply shows just how much the gang lifestyle ultimately ends up repeating itself. The police reports would later show just how brutal this murder was, with the autopsy showing how TB was shot so many times it was likely an entire magazine was emptied into him, and that in the police scanner audio, it was even said that they believed the shooters reloaded their guns and shot again. It's rumoured that the gunmen were HK and McAdoo, with this tying a whopping 7 murders to him just in 2017 alone. The police dispatch would also spot the black vehicle that the shooter drove away in. Them claiming that one of the shooters had a light complexion, which likely may have fit McAdoo's description.
2 males, 1 light complexion, wearing a mask.
Indeed, the next day the duo were clearly in high spirits as they would pose together for pictures. And if these rumours are true, HK single-handedly avenged his brother T-Roy after this series of back-to-back murders following T-Roy's death. Meanwhile, TB's friends like FBG Duck would be devastated and mourn his death. In just a few months, 2 of their most notable members, TB and Poppy, were killed at the hands of Get Back Gang. TB's mother would also post a heartbreaking thread to Twitter reacting to his death, and TB's schoolteacher would even post a moving article where he explained his hurt at hearing the news of his former students TB and Poppy's death, with his mother also posting her own emotional tribute to her son in the comments of that article, also calling out hateful and disrespectful comments